Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Deborah Hatswell and you're listening to BBR Investigations. Tonight I have a very important guest on the show, a man I've known for several years now. Steve Hevican is a chap from the Midlands who has always had strange experiences. It started for him as a child, he had them as a teen, and then went on throughout his adult life. He's in his 60s now and he's still experiencing strange things. One night, when Steve was walking along the canal in Heath with his girlfriend's brother and the dog, they reached an overgrown section which was full of weeds and plants and blackberry bushes, just a tangle of shrubs. The dog began to react in a really strange way, as if someone was hiding in the tangle of the bushes. Steve tried to light up the bushes with his torch, but as he shined his light into the bush, the torchlight would fail, but it would light again when he pointed it away from that direction. Both the men set off, and Steve felt the warning not to look back, but he did. And as he looked back, he saw the weirdest thing. Where the bushes were, there was now a strange figure that was standing there in the gloom, and it looked for all the world like a troglodyte or a wild man creature that was just standing there watching. It had that shape to it, but it was made of light. It had a really strange glow to it, almost as if it was emitting its own light source somehow. The creature glowed as it watched them walk down the path. Steve asked me if I felt that some of the creatures are beings that people experience. Do they ever follow people home? A question many people will have asked themselves, no doubt. And I would say the answer to that is yes. On many occasions, I have spoken to people that have connected with something, shall we say, in a woodland setting or somewhere else, and that creature has followed them home. It doesn't just happen if you're a paranormal investigator. I mean, you could buy a piece of second-hand furniture and bring something into your home, but it does have that kind of thing. An attachment is an attachment. So if something attaches to your energy and you bring it to your home, we have to set some serious boundaries in the same way that you would with a human being who was trying to get in your home. And if you're in the woodlands and your gut tells you shouldn't be there, leave, because there are predatory humans around and there are also predatory beings. So that instinct, that gut, listen to it and use it like a tool. Steve also asked me if this kind of ongoing activity happens along bloodlines, as some of his children began to experience similar things to Steve in their home after he visited. And they've also had strange experiences of their own. And on a trip with his grandchildren, the whole family group were confronted by a huge thud on the ground that just shook the whole family. This was not the first time Steve had felt that thud on the ground. He's also felt that at Cannock. Steve's daughters have had very strange experiences at their homes. And his son also had an experience where he felt shadowed when he was with his friends in the woodlands. Even the family dog began to act strange around the home. There had been ominous feelings around the home and there had been thuds on the roof. The events culminated quite recently when Steve was leaving the cemetery after a visit with a loved one. That day, as he drove away, Steve saw two beasts, or creatures he struggled to name. He felt they were almost werewolf-like in appearance. The family members in the car did not see the creatures. So were they meant for Steve's eyes only? This all started in 2017. Steve decided to visit an area close to where he lives on the edge of Cannock Chase. He lives Heath. It was early spring, below 20 degrees, and there was snow on the ground. Steve had got an interest in the British Bigfoot, and he decided that a snowy day was a good day to look for prints in the snow, and I would agree. While walking off the path, Steve went into thicker vegetation. He heard steps being taken around him. He felt watched and shadowed on the entire visit. After a couple of visits with strange activity happening around him, including bangs, thuds and whistles. Steve decided to back off from that area as he felt things were taking a negative vibe. Listening to many reports in the area of missing people, missing pets and livestock made Steve not want to go into the woodland alone. The events unfolded over 4 years, and they started on that very first visit to Cannock Chase. At first, as I say, it was footsteps moving around by something unseen that followed him. Then whistles and rock clacks. On each occasion, Steve tried to find the reason for the things that he was hearing. He looked around, he checked the area. He wondered if it was a woodworker or a dog walker, perhaps. But on all occasions, he was there alone. The events at his children's homes have happened in the years since his regular visits, and we seem to have gone from some slight following attempts to showing themselves as a large canine creature as big as a horse. Is this being the one witnessed by many people on Cannock Chase? Is it the same invisible being that followed him in the woods that day? Or are they different entities entirely? The things on the chase have been reported for over 800 years. So that tells me that lots and lots of people have seen them. Canals, we know about the Shroppy Canal. There are a number of strange reports like this along that canal. I spoke with Steve at length, and we do chat from time to time on the phone, and we discussed some of the activity that was happening around him in his children's home, and I gave him a few pointers on how to set some boundaries. Steve shared his most recent experience with me after his visit to the cemetery. On that night, he saw two thickly muscled creatures that were as large as horses, and they were moving down across the field almost in a cat-like way. But the bodies, heads and tails on these creatures resembled dogs, and they were very canine looking. While I had Steve on the phone chatting, he allowed me to quickly record our chat. So we pick up the conversation where I asked Steve to start with his visits to the woods and all of the events that have taken place from then up to him seeing the two strange creatures.
I mean, my exploring down the fields, as I said, when I kept hearing things about the British Bigfoot and like the wild man of the woods and all that kind of stuff. And then I decided to, and I heard there was like reports to do with Cannock Chase, so I started looking it up online a few years back, and then your name came up in the research that I was doing, and then I started looking at your stuff, and I thought, oh, she looks like the kind of person that I need to get in touch with. And anyway, when you, one of the things that I looked at when you said it would be interesting if people went out to their local neck of the woods, and they'd be surprised because these creatures are probably closer than you think. And of course, that led to my first sort of adventure when I went out. It had registered like 20 below zero on that day. And when I had that sort of encounter, like with whatever it was, I didn't see anything, but I definitely heard something.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. But anyway, my daughter Summer, she had an experience in recent times. Well, I wondered whether something had followed me up from the woods. Not on the same day, perhaps, but somehow established where it might have thought that I lived. Because when I came back from the woods on that day, I went straight to my daughter Summers, who lives across the road from my apartment, diagonally. Mm-hmm. But I went to her place to tell her about my encounter, this experience. But anyway, I was wondering if anything had followed me somehow, if it's something supernatural, I don't know. Or if this being has got supernatural abilities. I'll just give you a rough outline. She was in a living room, which is at the back of the house, and the partner had gone to bed, Dan. Anyway, someone was sitting there, and she noticed that Tom, the cat, was outside the door, and he was like, his head was like twisting back as I was looking back across the garden, and it was night time. It was just dark out there. And I don't think they had any lighting out there. But anyway, you know, when this is familiar to me and to you, but when she was telling me, it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because I thought, wow. Because she said, I said, I had this distinct feeling that there was like a presence in the garden. I says, and I felt that it wasn't exactly a person. I says, and, you know, it affected her like a body, as our body sensed it.
Yeah.
And anyway, I said, normally I would have gone to the door and it's got like a patio doors, and she would have burst the cat in. But I think she just got up and she felt so alarmed that she just quickly slid the curtain across. She got double curtains across. And then she started to rapidly, like feeling a sense of alarm, move across the living room, across into the kitchen, and then to the foot of the stairs, and then started making about the stairs.
Yeah.
And there's a window at the bottom, and there's one at the top as well. But the window at the bottom, as she started to go upstairs, she felt this, as though somebody was trying to get in the window. And she felt the window sort of, it was closed, it was shut, but it was like being, as though someone was trying to pull it and force it open.
Oh dear.
And anyway, she said it was like, you know, that the proverbial thing, you know, when you sort of, it's like that cliche.
Yeah.
You feel as though you're trying to move, but you can't move because you're so scared. You don't feel as though you're actually moving anywhere.
Yeah.
And she was doing that to try to get up the stairs. Anyway, she got up the stairs and she went and woke Dan up. And anyway, there was like, I think he went down to go and investigate. And anyway, he didn't see anything out there or whatever. But there was something interesting about the window, about it being, it wasn't open at one time, but then it was. But if you talk to her, she might be able to explain it in more detail and whatever. And there was like a bit of a thing, you know, like, and so, and then I started to worry then. I thought, oh my goodness, whatever that is down the field, I wonder if I sort of made it sort of come after me, like, or try and connect with me or something. Cool. But anyway, so that was that. So she's got that. And I think I did mention to you in the past that my son was at, I ain't sure, it must have been a place called Western Park. He was with some friends. And then it was starting to get like a twilight. And they decided they'd been messing about on this sort of countryside parks and whatever it was. And they decided, they realised there was some noises in the bushes and trees. And he was telling me they couldn't see anybody, but my son, he was starting to feel a bit uneasy, as though there something wasn't quite right. And he was like, I think we ought to leave now, guys. And they started walking off this area where they were. And then, which was interesting, it made my ears prick up. He said it's like as though this sound through the trees and the bushes sort of followed them, the typical shadowing behaviour, you know. And so that was there. So if you wanted to talk to my son, I could try and arrange something with that. But there's not much more to it than that, than what I've just told you. The whistling, what happened with that was, as I said, I'd been going down the fields to the woods, exploring around, and I've seen one or two sort of structure type things, but I assumed they were being man-made, you know, people were practicing survival or making blinds, because we do have deer around the area. So I thought that might have been connected with that. But then there was one or two structures that didn't seem quite right, you know, in a strange way, that I thought might have been a sort of perhaps let as a signal or as a marker or a sign. I did drop it off, and I'll be honest with you, I did drop it off. Because I was starting to get uneasy with some of the things I was researching and looking at different things, and especially in North America where people are going missing, and there's, you know, there's national parks and all kinds of things. And then I realised that there's obviously people going missing in the UK, and there's all kinds of weird things going on. And as you know, I've had weird stuff all my life, so I thought it's highly likely that I'll encounter something really weird. So anyway, but I think I was still probably nipping down the woods from time to time. But my daughter Ebony, she's got a dog named Candy. And anyway, at the time, I was walking this dog for her like 2 or 3 times a day. I was walking the dog, and it was getting me out of the house, giving me a bit of exercise. And I was walking around to the there's like a blocked off road, which I'll come to that incident in a minute. But anyway, at the time, I thought it was odd, but I didn't make too much of it, you know. But it was definitely after my encounter down the field when I had that weird heavy thudding on my first explore, you know.
Yes.
And anyway, I was walking on with the dog, Candy, on the lead, and all of a sudden, from this sort of corner area in the bushes and the trees, there was this like whistling, as though there were at least 2 people, perhaps, sort of whistling, and it was like as though it seemed very close to me, as though someone or something was trying to get my attention.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see anyone. And it was like, it wasn't just like, you know, like somebody calling a dog or whatever. And if anyone was walking a dog, it would have been way over the back of those trees.
Yeah.
On the grass. And I would have recognised it for what it was, you know.
Yeah.
But this was definitely something unusual. And I was like, whoa. And it was that sort of loud, and as though someone was, or something was coming close, trying to, whatever, interact in some way. But I couldn't see nothing or anybody. I was watching something. I'm not sure whether it might have been that program that you were in, or whether it was anything else that I watched. And then someone was talking about these unusual whistling sounds.
Yeah.
And I thought, whoa, hang on. It made me sort of think, but I'm not, you know, obviously I can't say that it was something strange.
Yeah.
It was so close to me, this whistling, that I was alarmed that I couldn't see anybody or anything. Same as I felt when I had my original experience with the heavy thudding. What I did, I sent out like the mental thoughts. I'm peaceful. I mean no harm.
Yeah.
I'm a loving, kind person. I was just exploring around here. And well, yeah, this field, it's I started calling it Daisy Field. So it's quite a little bit of space. It's got that corner piece that I was just talking about. Also, another thing happened. Again, I was walking the dog Candy, sort of late one night, and I was almost at the end of the road, coming on that corner, which comes onto the old Cannock Road, they call it. As I was approaching the corner, for some reason, this white car, and there's not many cars about that late around that area, and whatever time of the night, it must have been around about midnight, 12:30, something like that. And anyway, for some reason, this white car, as it sort of came past at its normal speed, and there was just something about the car that made me think, oh, I want to get a closer look at that car. So I ran a few yards to the end of the corner. There was no way the car could have got out of the way, gone anywhere. But the car was nowhere in sight. There was no engine driving away. I walked down, because there's only houses on the right-hand side. I walked down with the dog to see if there's any white cars on the drives, in case one had pulled up on the drive.
Yes.
And it was definitely a white car, and there was no white car on any of the drives. I went over to the Gold's car rental, van rental place, looked on the forecourt of there, and there was vans and all sorts of things, but there was nothing that matched this. And I was feeling, the vehicles, and I thought, could it have been a van? And I was looking for a car, but I knew that was ridiculous. But I was feeling the bonnets of the cars to feel if they were warm. But now everything was. And anyway, I was telling my daughter Release about this, and she says, "Oh God, Dad, you joking?" And I said, "I'm not." I said, "Why?" And it says that she had exactly the same experience with a vehicle over by where she lives in Albury.
Right.
And I can't remember the details of the vehicle now and whatever. I'll have to find out. But she said there was this car that was like, or van, whatever it was, that was like there 1 minute and then gone the next, and there's no way he could have got out the way.
Next, I asked Steve if he would let me know what was the next strange thing that happened to him and his family. As he explained his next experience, Steve reminded me that when he first went to Cannock Chase, one of the things that he felt was this enormous thud on the ground that you could feel in your chest. And he was out on a walk with his family and his grandchildren, and they felt the exact same thud, to the point where his granddaughter asked him what that was, and he was honest with her and he said he didn't know what it was, but they all felt it and it kind of shook them up. The next conversation I had with Steve is where he explains to me he was leaving the cemetery after visiting a loved one, and he sees two incredibly strange creatures, shall we say, in a field as he passed in the car.
That incident where the dog had seen something that we didn't see and was growling, then the incident where the thud on the roof, and then the incident where someone was unnerved enough to want to get upstairs quickly, and then something was pulling at the window. It might have realised that I sort of detected it, because, as I said, I obviously felt as though whatever this was that was making these thuds, I'd take a step or two, and then this creature would take, about 3 steps, 4 steps, like thud, 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 or I can't say it was footsteps, but you could interpret it as footsteps, but it could have been like an energetic sort of like banging to let me know that I wasn't welcome in the area, or maybe if that's a slightly different dimension, it might have seen me. So whatever it was, it could have thought, oh, that's curious and interesting. So in that slightly different reality, perhaps, or it might be in this reality totally, it could have thought, oh, that guy's interesting, I'm going to follow him. But coming back to these two creatures that I saw in the field while I was in the car, I mean, obviously, that particular road, Dan was not exactly speeding, but he wasn't exactly going slow. For a good 8 to 10 seconds of me looking, it was absolutely incredible. And I said, these two creatures, whatever they were, I said, I'm hoping with all my heart that they were just some kind of giant dog. I mean, I'm 64 and I've seen Great Danes, I've seen these big Newfoundlands, I've seen you name it, I've seen, I think I've seen all the dogs that there is in the world. These things were far bigger than that, wherever they were. Yeah. And if I say they were the size of a family car, like a sort of an estate car, and a Zai at least, and it was like, but there seemed to be this like sort of a sinewy sort of movement to them, right? Which wasn't like a horse or anything like that. Movement was like probably a bit like a cat, I should imagine as well. Our cat can move. These two creatures hadn't got a care in the world, and like I say, it's about 8:30, 8:45-ish. It was still light, and but they didn't have horse tails. These were more like dog-like. Enough sort of bulk in the tail, but it was like, and they're just like casually as though they hadn't got a care in the world. And I mean, there is a house nearby to this sort of private wood that these creatures seem to be slowly going towards. But there is a house nearby across the road, and it's. I was thinking of knocking the door of that place, but if they were to say like no, there's no, I'll tell you what it'll be. But it's like, but I was being unnerved by these people going missing. Yeah, that I told you before, and it was like it was making me a bit apprehensive, thinking, oh crikey, I wouldn't like that to happen. I said, but it looked to me, for all the world, I said, you see these, and you see like these sorts of like, and I said to my family, I said, I'm going to say werewolf, and I said, you might think I've lost the plot, but I'm just telling you what I saw. All I can do is tell you what I saw.
Yeah.
And but these creatures are like sort of a darkish, like sort of a dark greyish, as much as I can remember. And they definitely had like the sort of the wolfish. I was telling my daughter Elise, and I said, "So, do you think you might have somehow become aware of a different time as to when there might have been wolves that was in the land?"
Steve went on to explain that he was unsure whether the creatures he saw in the field were flesh and blood, paranormal or dimensional in some way. He said to me that as he was driving, he saw the two creatures in the field. They were as big as horses, but more canine in description, and the way that they moved across the field was very strange. They almost slinked, almost like a cat, he said, but these creatures were definitely canine. They were kind of grey, dark colour, and he passed quite quickly in the car and he saw them. What Steve's describing in this conversation really is an escalation of events. So he went to Cannock in 2017 and he encountered something that shadowed him around Cannock, thumping its feet, and on subsequent visits matching his step, almost trying to catch him out in a way. His grown-up children have had experiences of their own with something banging at the window, something thudding on the roof, and pets acting incredibly strange. And Steve wonders if he kind of took something from Cannock and took it back home with him. We had a talk about setting boundaries and the fact that you need will to kind of shut this down if you need to. Everything seems calm at the moment, and Steve's happy for me to interview him again. So if anything else does come up, I'll make sure and let you know. I was really grateful to Steve for letting me interview him, and I can't wait to interview him again. I'll be back at the same time, same day, next week. Good night, everyone.